In today's video, at the end, I'm going to bring up a verse that I think is really important in, I don't know, the truth community. I don't like thinking of these things as like social movements. I think everybody should, I mean, it seems ridiculous, but I think everybody should have their own YouTube channel where they can just make a video and post it of what their thoughts on something are. I really think that it should be very casual like that, and that not that I think YouTube is amazing. That's just like where we find ourselves today, that it's like a public platform. Posting a video to YouTube is like going to a public square, going to the Agora in times past and saying something, standing up on a soapbox and saying something. And I think that I don't believe in divisions and people having levels, and I don't believe in experts. And I mean, sometimes I say I'm not an expert on anything because I don't think that anybody is an expert on anything. I think that we all can come up with our own ideas, and I mean, some of us have experience, have a lot of experience in certain topics and more informed decisions, but I don't believe in divisions and putting yourself or putting others on pedestals. And a topic I've been talking about is Pauline stuff and how I'm not a huge fan of Paul. And it's interesting that it seems like the churches today, 501c3 churches, are all based off of Paul stuff, even though Peter is supposed to be the rock on which the church was found. So it's weird. And wasn't he one that was getting into some quarrels with Paul? And one of the things that comes from Paul is the church hierarchy. So, and these are things that directly contradict the teachings of Jesus. And this is what I think is actually kind of dangerous about Pauline stuff. While I think Paul certainly brings people to Jesus, and I think that people can be deceived by Paul stuff, but they get the message of Jesus Christ and they love Jesus and they love God more than anything, so it becomes kind of not as big of a problem that they're following. See, I don't even want to say that they're following Paul, because I hope they're following Jesus Christ first and foremost. I'm just saying because I go to a 501c3 church. I love that my pastor talks about supernatural. He's not afraid of talking about supernatural things, but he is deceived about ball earth stuff. And I mean, here's an interesting thing about Paul and how I think people put him on a pedestal. The pastor literally took the vax so that he could go on like a pilgrimage, go on a vacation to go to all the places where Paul allegedly went. Like, I think people really do idolize Paul. I'm not saying that my pastor does. Maybe he just draws inspiration from, but to me, it feels like borderline idolatry to put any man on such a high pedestal. So here, let me just go through the examples. This is still from that website. I think it's an interesting website showing side-by-side comparisons. I think anybody is fair game for their words to be put alongside the Messiah's and to compare and contrast and to say, hey, I don't know, I'm going to go with Jesus on this one. So Paul says, for though you have countless leaders in Christ, Jesus said, neither be you called leaders, for you have one leader, Christ. And okay, so these, I don't know exactly what translation this person is using. The words could be a little bit different. Maybe I should be doing the due diligence of looking these up in KJV to see exactly what's going on. But I think that the spirit of the message that Jesus sent was very clear, that don't call anybody rabbi, don't call anybody father, because we're all under God at the same level. There aren't earthly hierarchies. The pyramid is a lie. The whole Illuminati pyramid thing, how they think of themselves as like illuminated individuals above other people, and none of that is right. And that's something that I've always felt since a young age. I've always understood, like, hey, even if somebody's really famous, they're just a person. Everybody's just a person at the end of the day. Nobody's special, except for Jesus is God in the flesh. So if you're not Jesus, you're on the same level as everybody else. The least in the kingdom is greater than anybody on earth. So on remuneration, Is that supposed to be remunerate? I don't know. Paul says, talking about elders, let the elders who rule well be considered worthy of double honor, especially those who labor in preaching and teaching. Jesus told us nobody should be called rabbi, nobody should be called teacher. Sometimes in my videos I talk about how I used to be a teacher. I don't know, I guess I should emphasize that I don't think anybody should think of themselves as a teacher. And you see people fall into that trap where their videos feel like the person making them has a lot of self-importance and like they're proving stuff with their videos. I think that you should keep it casual and just share ideas, and don't come from a place of authority. Just come from a place of, hey, I'm sharing my opinions and my theories on this stuff. Leave your opinions down below in the comments. I think that's more what it should be like. But in the church setting too, I don't think we're supposed to have pastors who, if that's their job to do this thing, I don't think that there's supposed to be any hierarchy, like say the Catholic Church, I think would be obviously taking this to the extreme. But even on the less extreme case of small-time pastors, I don't think that every church is supposed to have a pastor to it, and I don't believe in the hierarchy at all. I believe more in the home church thing, that these things should be very grassroots. Actually, a conspiracy, something that I think is a big conspiracy is, well, how did the first church start out? It was like a commune. Everybody pooled their money together, and they'll try to say that it's like that, and some churches do a good job of using tithing to care for people in the community. And I'm not saying that what we have today is totally pure evil, but I'm just saying it doesn't follow the teachings of Jesus, which is there shouldn't be any leaders. I don't agree with Paul here that elders are worth double honor. I don't believe in that. You can see Paul grabbing from the Old Testament to justify these things that he's making up that actually contradict Jesus. So, and preach as you go, this is what Jesus said, and preach as you go, saying, the kingdom of heaven is at hand. Heal the sick, raise the dead, cleanse the lepers, cast out demons. You received without paying, give without pay. And I think that was a weird translation. I think you receive freely. I think that the word freely in KJV is used, but I'm not certain. On the number to be saved, I guess Paul says, I'm just going to skip. Paul says that all Israel will be saved. I just include these because they go with an like this huge theme over Paul's stuff, that Paul makes it all about faith, which of course, faith is critically important. But it's like Paul is selling a gospel that's easier than what Jesus actually said. That's something that I feel, that Paul said some true things, and he was vitally important and was a vessel of sorts to spread the new. See, I don't even want to say the gospel, because I think Paul spread his own gospel, which I don't think is okay. But he obviously was important in spreading Jesus Christ to the Gentiles. I'm not saying that he didn't do that. But I think that what Paul talked about a lot is like easier than what Jesus told us. If you believed everything that the Pauline 501c3 churches, you would think it's all sunshine and rainbows and everybody's going to make it to heaven. But Jesus told us, enter by the narrow gate, for the gate is wide and the way is easy that leads to destruction, and those who enter it by it are many. For the gate is narrow and the way is hard that leads to life, and those who find it are few. This isn't KJV clearly, so I don't know which Bible version this is, but the sentiment is the same. And also just Bible verses that how often do 501c3 churches talk about wolves in sheep's clothing, and how many people are going to be blindsided pretty much when judgment comes and Jesus says, I never knew you. There's plenty of people that they think, it even says that people will cast out demons, which I think is pointing, there's been some criticism in the comments against me, and people are like, there's no way that Paul could be a false apostle. There's no way, because he cast out demons. But Jesus actually specifically mentions when he talks about people who say that we did great things in your name. It's in those verses where Jesus said that even some people who called on Jesus, thought that they were calling on Jesus, thought they were doing miracles in the names of Jesus. It mentions specifically casting out, I think it says casting out devils in the KJV. But it does get mentioned that even some people that are not saved will be casting out devils, but they're not doing it legitimately. What that makes me think of are all the crazy churches out there where they get people to come up to the front every week and like pretend that they're casting out. Do you guys know what I'm talking about? The same types of people that are allegedly speaking in tongues, but they're just shouting a bunch of gibberish. That's not even what speaking in tongues is in the Bible. If you read the Bible, it's clear speaking in tongues is when you're understood by a whole bunch of different people that speak different languages and they hear it in their mother tongue when you talk. Anyways, Paul told us a lot about teachers, and God has appointed first apostles, second prophets, third teachers. He's setting a hierarchy that Jesus never talked about. We're not supposed to call anybody rabbi. We're not supposed to call anybody teacher. We're not supposed to call anybody father. I think that those are real specific things that Jesus told us, and I think that there's a reason for it. Imagine a world where when anybody said the word father, we immediately knew what they were talking about, that they were talking about God the Father. Here is an interesting one. Galatians chapter 1, verses 8 to 9. So kind of the point of this video it's the scripture that I'm going to show at the very end. Not a lot of people in these videos that I'm doing on Paul, not a lot of people are addressing the specifics. Something that to me is really personally a big one is the whole guile thing. Why would Jesus specifically mention that, hey, look at this person in whom there's no guile? Why would he say that, and why would it be written down in the Bible? And then later, Paul says that he was being crafty, and craft is such a buzzword. It's such a witchcraft, crafty. It doesn't sound positive to me. And crafty and tricking people with guile and being one type of person to one person and being another type of person to another person, being so inauthentic and phony. Anyways, here's another big one. Instead of people just saying, I don't understand Paul and I'm too stupid to understand Paul, which we'll get to, Jesus told you, don't call people stupid. What is up with this? Okay. But though we, or an angel from heaven, preach any other gospel unto you than that which we have preached unto you, let him be accursed. As we said before, so say I now again, if any man preach any other gospel unto you than that ye have received, let him be accursed. Paul tries to curse people 2 times. If he's repeating it, he really feels this and thinks that he's justified in doing this. And man, so interesting that Paul talks about his own gospel, and here he's being so defensive, just shutting down anyone. If anybody says anything other than what I've been telling you, let that person be cursed. And I think that is in stark comparison, or contrast. If you compare that to what Jesus told us, love your enemies, bless them that curse you. And when you compare it to the first martyr, Stephen, being stoned, and says, forgive them. And Jesus, when Jesus was killed, forgive them. Those are the ways that Christians act. They don't say, and if anybody else out there is telling you anything other than what I'm telling you, they're cursed. And let me say it again. If anybody else is out there saying anything other than I'm telling you, and this is just a man, some person saying this, they're cursed. That's not what Jesus told us to do. That's not how he told us to act. We're supposed to pray for our enemies and to bless people that curse. We're supposed to bless, I guess. I wonder if they blessed Saul after he was laying the curses on them like that. I think of how Jesus healed the man whose ear was chopped off. So this is just something that I think is the beginning of this video I think is very applicable to truth community, making YouTube videos. Don't think of it as you having any authority over anything or teaching anybody anything. Take it from the perspective of, I'm sharing my opinion. And have you noticed how poisonous things get and how culty things get when people take on like a leader role? Like, I'm a teacher, I'm going to teach you about this subject. And maybe that's also why I think people should keep their content varied, because as to not come off as like an expert in a certain topic, or churning out the same material every day as if you're giving a lecture and on the same class every day. These are just my opinions of how things should be. And I don't even know if I ever finished my thought earlier, that all of the hoaxes about these communes, like the Jim Jones thing, is a big hoax. I don't believe in that, the Jim Jones thing. I think that was a total Masonic fabrication, fake story. I think they just laid on the ground and took a picture, and I don't think that they were actually dead. And I think that they come up with those because they don't want people to have a commune, because that's what it should be. Followers of Christ should pool their money together and use it together. And I guess what we have today is just this disjointed 501c3 thing where you tithe and hopefully your church does it for good. But how often do stories come out where the priest or the preacher is pocketing the money and buying cars or whatever? It's a dime a dozen, and it's because wolves in sheep's clothing are everywhere. So you gotta really try to find somebody who you can tell is for Jesus first and foremost. But it's so hard. I mean, they all teach about Baal Earth these days. They're very deceived in the churches. Let me read this. Matthew chapter 5, verse 22. But I say unto you that whosoever is angry with his brother without a cause shall be in danger of the judgment. And whosoever shall say to his brother, Raca, shall be in danger of the council. But whosoever shall say, Thou fool, shall be in danger of hellfire. And notice how often when you're trying to talk about truths, like flat earth and stuff, their initial reaction is almost always to call you a fool. And so I think that this is some amazing wisdom from Jesus Christ for a lot of reasons, so many reasons to not call somebody a fool, because, hey, you might be the fool in the situation. And this is another instance where Jesus told us things that we need to follow, and that we have Jesus's words, so we should try to go to those and see how to live. And I think it's dubious to always be going to Paul and looking at things that a man talked about rather than going to the Messiah. And so this is just an amazing piece of advice. Don't call people stupid. And if everybody, here's the thing too that I think about sometimes, and it's kind of related to if everybody, whenever the word Father was spoken, people knew exactly what you're talking about. I think of it about little rules like this. Like if everybody just could listen to Jesus, when somebody broke that rule, it would be like abundantly obvious that you're dealing with somebody that you shouldn't be dealing with. Imagine if there was a society that it was just well understood that you never call somebody stupid. And then some out-of-towner walks in, and how long would it take for them to be outed as an obvious out-of-towner because they call somebody stupid? That's just, in one way or another, the spirit of calling somebody stupid is pretty well ingrained in a lot of people. Well, that's it for this video. Hope you enjoyed. God bless everyone.